Standing outside my favorite coffee shop in downtown Portland, I held a lukewarm latte in my hand. I had just witnessed my ex-wife Jessica and her new husband Troy laughing at me. Troy had said it loud enough for everyone to hear, "Still pretending to be important, Brent Face, that you are a nobody now." I stood there silent, refusing to respond. Anger bubbled inside me, but I stayed calm because I knew a secret they had no idea about. They did not know who really signed their paychecks every month. But I was not ready to show my cards yet. Before I tell you how this all went down, I would love to know where you are watching from. Drop your city in the comments below. And if you have ever been underestimated by someone, hit that like button. Subscribe because what happens next is going to blow your mind. Trust me, you will want to see how Troy's smug face changes when he realizes the truth. I met Jessica 7 years ago at a startup event in Seattle. She was everything I thought I wanted back then. Energetic, ambitious, dreaming about becoming a marketing manager someday. Her eyes lit up whenever she talked about the future, about making something of herself. We clicked instantly over cheap wine and networking small talk. 2 years later, we got married in a small ceremony with close friends and family. Those early days felt perfect. We were young, broke, and deeply in love. At that time, I was building my own company from scratch. TechVista Solutions started as just an idea scribbled on napkins during late-night diner sessions. It was a software development firm focused on creating custom solutions for mid-sized businesses. Jessica supported me through everything. When I worked 16-hour days in our cramped apartment, she would bring me coffee and kiss my forehead. When investors rejected my pitches, she held me and said we would make it work. I remember one particular evening when we sat on our worn-out couch, spreading papers across the coffee table, mapping out a 5-year plan. Jessica looked at me with those bright eyes and said, "We are going to make it, Brent. I believe in you." I believed her. I believed in us. The first 3 years of marriage were a blur of struggle and hope. We ate ramen noodles more nights than I care to admit. Our apartment was tiny, barely 500 square feet, but it was ours. Jessica worked her marketing job during the day while I hustled to get TechVista off the ground. Weekends were spent together brainstorming, dreaming, planning. She never complained about our financial situation. She understood that building something meaningful takes time. Or at least I thought she understood. Everything changed in year 3 when TechVista finally started gaining traction. We landed our first major contract, a $2 million deal with a regional retail chain. Suddenly, I was traveling constantly, meeting clients across the Pacific Northwest, hiring employees, managing projects. My 14-hour days turned into 16, sometimes 18. I would leave before Jessica woke up and return after she had gone to bed. Our conversations became rushed phone calls from airport terminals. Date nights disappeared. The warmth between us started cooling into something distant and unfamiliar. Jessica began voicing her frustrations. "You care more about that company than about us," she said one night when I came home past midnight. I tried to explain the pressure, the responsibility of having employees depending on me, the investors expecting returns. But my words felt hollow even to my own ears. She wanted a husband who was present, and I had become a ghost who occasionally slept in our bed. The woman who once spread business plans on our coffee table now looked at me with resentment when I opened my laptop at dinner. I tried to balance everything. I really did. I scheduled date nights, bought flowers, planned weekend getaways. But work always interrupted. A client emergency here, a system failure there. Jessica stopped asking about my day. She stopped waiting up for me. The space between us grew wider with each passing month. One night after I missed her birthday dinner because of a crisis at the office, she said something that cut deep. I married a dreamer, not a workaholic ghost. 6 months before this coffee shop encounter, Jessica filed for divorce. She sat me down one evening and said the words I knew were coming, but refused to believe we have grown apart. I need someone who is actually present. I was too shocked to argue, too tired to fight. Maybe part of me knew she was right. We had become strangers living under the same roof. The divorce proceedings were surprisingly civil. She took the house in the suburbs that we had bought 2 years prior. I kept my downtown apartment and, of course, the company. Here is the thing Jessica never knew. She had no idea how successful TechVista had become. I kept the financial details of the business private, partly for security reasons and partly because I did not want money to complicate our already fragile relationship. She thought TechVista was just a small startup that paid the bills and not much more. She had no clue that the company was now valued at over $200 million, employing more than 300 people across 5 states. When we signed the divorce papers, she looked at me with cold, empty eyes. No regret, no second thoughts. She was done. I left that lawyer's office feeling hollow but also strangely relieved. I thought that was the end of our story. 3 months after the divorce was finalized, I ran into Jessica at a grocery store near my apartment. I was picking up basics, trying to remember if I needed milk or eggs when I heard her laugh. That familiar sound I used to love. I looked up and saw her standing by the produce section with a tall blond man in a polo shirt. He had that classic all-American look, broad shoulders, confident smile, expensive watch. Jessica saw me and waved, walking over with this man beside her. "Brent, hi," she said with forced cheerfulness. "This is Troy." "Troy? This is Brent, my ex-husband." Troy extended his hand with an overly firm grip. "Heard a lot about you, man," he said with a smile that did not reach his eyes. "Jessica said you are between jobs." I blinked, confused. "Between jobs, Jessica cut me off, her cheek slightly flushed. "Brent is taking time to figure things out. You know, after everything." Troy nodded with exaggerated sympathy. "Hey, no shame in that. The job market is tough. I am sure you will land something soon." I stood there, groceries in hand, realizing what had happened. Jessica had never told Troy about TechVista. Maybe she genuinely did not know how big the company had grown, or maybe she just did not care enough to mention it. Either way, Troy thought I was unemployed, struggling, a failure. The urge to correct him rose in my throat, but I swallowed it down. "Thanks for the concern," I said flatly. They left shortly after Troy's arm around Jessica's waist. I drove home that day with an uncomfortable knot in my stomach. It was the first time since the divorce that I felt genuinely insulted. 2 weeks after that grocery store encounter, I had a routine meeting with Sarah Chen, my HR director. We were reviewing new hires from the previous quarter, going through performance metrics, discussing team dynamics. As Sarah scrolled through the employee database on her laptop, a name caught my eye. Troy Brennan, Sales Executive, Northwest Regional Team. I asked Sarah to pull up his file. Hired 4 months ago, base salary of $85,000, plus commission assigned to our Northwest division. I stared at the screen, a strange mix of amusement and irritation washing over me. Troy Brennan was working for my company. He had no idea that the unemployed ex-husband he pitied was actually his boss. The irony was almost too perfect. I asked Sarah about his performance. "Average," she said, checking her notes. "He meets his quotas, but nothing exceptional. We have had a couple of informal complaints from colleagues about his attitude. Apparently, he takes credit for team wins and deflects blame when things go wrong. Nothing fireable, just personality issues." I nodded, slowly processing this information. Troy was not just working for me. He was a mediocre employee with an ego problem. I decided not to do anything immediately. I would just watch and wait. 2 weeks later, I went to my favorite Italian restaurant for dinner. It was a Friday night, and I needed to unwind after a stressful week of back-to-back meetings. I was seated at a corner table enjoying a glass of Chianti when I heard that laugh again. Jessica's laugh. I looked across the restaurant and saw her sitting at a large table with Troy and 3 other couples. They were clearly celebrating something, champagne bottles on the table, everyone dressed up. Troy spotted me and, to my surprise, waved me over. "Hey, Brent. Come say hi." I hesitated but walked over, not wanting to seem rude or bitter. Troy stood up, putting his hand on my shoulder like we were old friends. "Everyone, this is Jessica's ex-husband, Brent. He is taking a break from the grind, figuring life out. The table went quiet for a moment. Then one of Troy's friends, a guy named Kyle, chimed in. Must be nice, man. I wish I could just chill and not work. Living the dream, right? The group laughed not kindly but mockingly. Jessica stared down at her plate, her face turning red. She did not defend me or correct them. She just sat there silently. Troy continued, clearly enjoying himself. But seriously, Brent, if you need a reference or something, let me know. My company is always hiring. Maybe you could start in customer service or something. Entry level. The condescension in his voice was thick. I felt my blood pressure rising, but I kept my composure. Thanks, but I am good, I said evenly. Troy smirked. Pride will not pay the bills, buddy. Just trying to help. I excused myself and left the restaurant, my appetite gone. The humiliation stung more than I expected. Not because I cared what Troy thought, but because Jessica let him talk to me that way, without saying a word. The final straw came 2 weeks later at the same coffee shop from the beginning of this story. I was sitting in the corner working on my laptop, reviewing quarterly reports. Jessica and Troy walked in hand laughing about something. They did not notice me at first. Troy ordered loudly at the counter, making sure everyone heard him. Yeah, my company just closed a huge deal. $5 million contract. I am up for promotion. Jessica beamed at him. I am so proud of you, babe. Troy grinned. Unlike some people, I actually work hard and make things happen. I knew he was talking about me even though he could not see me. When they turned to leave, Troy's eyes landed on mine. Instead of showing any embarrassment, he walked over with that same smug smile. Oh, hey, did not see you there. Still hanging out at coffee shops all day. I closed my laptop slowly. Just working, I said calmly. Troy laughed. Working on what, your resume? The entire coffee shop went silent. People at other tables stopped their conversations to watch. Troy leaned against my table, crossing his arms. Look, I do not mean to be harsh, but Jessica deserves better than a guy who gave up. She is with someone who actually has ambition now. Jessica tugged at his arm. Babe, let us go. But Troy was not done. No, he needs to hear this. Brent, you had potential once, but you threw it away. Now you are just nothing. I stood up, meeting his eyes directly. You sure about that? Troy laughed louder. Yeah, I am sure. Face it, you are a nobody now. I picked up my laptop and coffee. We will see, I said quietly, walking past them and out the door. That night, I made a decision. Not out of revenge, but out of principle. I called an emergency meeting with my CFO and Sarah from HR. I asked for a complete breakdown of the Northwest Regional Sales Team's performance. The data confirmed what I already suspected. Troy and his group of 5 friends were average performers at best. Troy himself had a pattern of taking credit for collaborative efforts and blaming others when targets were missed. 2 formal complaints had been filed about his treatment of junior staff members. He was not a terrible employee, but he was not the superstar he pretended to be. I did not want to fire anyone out of personal spite. That would be petty and unprofessional. But I did want Troy and his friends to understand something important. Humility matters. Respect matters. You never know who you're talking to, and burning bridges can have consequences. I decided to organize a company-wide town hall meeting. It had been 2 years since I last addressed all employees directly. Most of the newer hires, including Troy, had never seen me in person. They only knew TechVista had a CEO who preferred to work behind the scenes. It was time to step into the light. 1 week later, TechVista hosted its quarterly town hall meeting at a downtown hotel conference center. Over 300 employees attended, filling the grand ballroom. Troy and his team sat near the middle, chatting and joking. I overheard Troy talking to Kyle before the meeting started. I heard the CEO is finally going to show up. Been running this company from the shadows for years? Must be some old dude who does not like public speaking. Kyle laughed. Yeah, I have never even seen a picture of him. Probably some boring suit who got lucky. At exactly 10 a.m., the lights dimmed and the stage lit up. Our head of communications stepped up to the microphone. Good morning, everyone. Thank you for being here. It is my pleasure to welcome someone who rarely makes public appearances, but whose vision built this company from nothing. Please welcome our founder and CEO, Brent Morrison. I walked onto the stage in a tailored black suit, feeling every eye in the room on me. The applause started slowly, then built into a wave. I looked out at the crowd and spotted Troy immediately. His face had gone completely pale. His mouth hung open in shock. A few seats away in the VIP section, Jessica sat frozen, her hands covering her mouth. I took the microphone and smiled. Good morning, everyone. For those who do not know me personally, I am Brent Morrison, founder and CEO of TechVista Solutions. I know I keep a low profile, and I appreciate your patience with my preference for working behind the scenes rather than in the spotlight. But today I wanted to address all of you directly because we have reached an incredible milestone together. I clicked to the first slide of my presentation showing TechVista's growth over 7 years. We started in a small apartment with just an idea and a lot of coffee. Today we employ over 300 talented individuals across 5 states. Last year we generated $200 million in revenue, and this year we are on track to exceed that. The room erupted in applause. I continued outlining our expansion plans. 5 new offices opening in the next 18 months. 500 new positions being created, increased benefits for existing staff, profit-sharing programs. I talked about our company values: innovation, integrity, collaboration, and respect. Respect is not just a word on our wall, I said, looking directly at Troy's section. It is how we treat each other every single day. It is how we treat clients, partners, and anyone we encounter. Because we never know someone's full story. We never know what challenges they are facing or what they have accomplished. Assumptions can be dangerous, and arrogance has no place in our culture. The presentation lasted 45 minutes. When it ended, I invited employees to come chat with me in the lobby. Troy sat in his seat for several minutes, unmoving. His friends whispered frantically around him. Jessica remained in the VIP section, tears streaming down her face. Eventually, Troy stood up and made his way toward me. I was talking with some engineers when he approached. Brent, he said quietly, his voice shaking. I had no idea. I turned to face him. Clearly. Troy tried to find words. Look about what I said at the coffee shop. I cut him off. You mean when you called me a nobody? Yeah, I remember. His face reddened. I was just... Jessica told me you were struggling. I kept my voice calm but firm. You thought you could look down on someone without knowing their story. You assumed that because I was not flashing my success around, I had none. That says more about you than it does about me. Jessica appeared beside Troy, mascara running, eyes puffy. Brent, I am so sorry. I never knew the company had grown this much. Why did you not tell me? I looked at her, feeling nothing but a dull sadness. Would it have mattered, Jessica? You left because I worked too much. The company you thought was nothing is now worth hundreds of millions. But that is not why you left, is it? You left because you wanted someone present. Someone who put you first. I could not be that person then. I have learned a lot since. She sobbed. I made such a terrible mistake. I shook my head gently. We both made mistakes. But I am not angry anymore. Our marriage ending was probably the best thing for both of us. You deserve someone who can give you what you need. I needed to focus on building something meaningful. We were not wrong. We were just wrong for each other at that time. Troy stood there looking smaller than I had ever seen him. He finally spoke again. Am I fired? I let the question hang in the air for a moment. Everyone nearby went silent, waiting for my answer. No, you are not fired, but things are going to change for you. You and your team are being transferred to a different division under a new manager, someone who will help you develop better teamwork skills and humility. Your performance will be reviewed quarterly. If you improve and embrace our values, you stay. If you continue down the path of arrogance and disrespect, you will be let go. The choice is entirely yours. Troy nodded, unable to meet my eyes. I understand. Thank you for the second chance. I extended my hand. He shook it, his grip weak and uncertain. I then turned to Jessica. I genuinely wish you well, Jessica. I hope you find happiness. I really do. She tried to speak, but no words came out. I walked away, leaving them standing there in the hotel lobby, surrounded by employees who now knew exactly what had transpired. I did not feel victorious or satisfied. I felt free. 3 months passed after that town hall meeting. Life settled into a new rhythm, one that felt healthier and more balanced than anything I had experienced in years. I threw myself into work, but differently this time. I learned to delegate more, to trust my executive team to leave the office at reasonable hours. TechVista continued thriving, but I stopped letting it consume every waking moment. I started running in the mornings, something I had not done since college. The fresh Portland air, the sound of my feet hitting the pavement, the clarity that came with physical exertion. It became my meditation. I also began volunteering on weekends, teaching coding basics to kids from underprivileged neighborhoods. Watching their faces light up when they made their first program run successfully reminded me why I fell in love with technology in the first place. It was not about the money or the status. It was about creating something from nothing, about solving problems, about opening doors for others. These kids did not care that I was a CEO. They just appreciated that someone took time to teach them, to believe in them. I made new friends, too. Real friends who knew me as Brent, the person, not Brent the businessman. People I met at the running club, at volunteer events, at random coffee shops. They valued authenticity over achievement, kindness over credentials. One evening, I sat on the rooftop deck of my apartment building, looking out at the city lights. For the first time in years, maybe ever, I felt genuinely at peace. The divorce, Troy's mockery, the public revelation, all of it had been painful, but pain, I realized, is often the catalyst for growth. Through HR, I heard occasional updates about Troy. Surprisingly, he had taken the transfer and the criticism seriously. His new manager reported that Troy was making genuine efforts to be more collaborative, less self-promotional. He arrived early, stayed late, and actually listened when colleagues offered input. The complaints stopped. His performance metrics improved. He was becoming a better employee, and I hoped a better person. Sometimes people need to be humbled to grow. I understood that because I had been humbled too. 6 months after the town hall, I received an email from Jessica. The subject line simply read, "I owe you an apology." I almost deleted it without reading, but curiosity won. She wrote a long, heartfelt message. She apologized for not understanding the pressure I was under during our marriage. She admitted she had been unfair in some of her judgments. She thanked me for handling the situation with Troy with more grace than she deserved. She also mentioned that she and Troy had broken up, not because of what happened, but because they realized they were not compatible. She ended the email by saying she hoped I found someone who appreciated all of me, not just the parts that were convenient. I read the email twice, then closed my laptop. I did not feel smug or vindicated. I did not feel the urge to respond with, "I told you so." I just felt a quiet sense of closure. Jessica and I had loved each other once, but we wanted different things. She was not a villain, and neither was I. We were just two people who could not make it work. I wished her well silently and moved on. As I reflected on everything that had happened, certain truths became clear. Being underestimated is not the worst thing in the world. In fact, it can be liberating. When people expect nothing from you, you are free to exceed their expectations on your own terms, not theirs. But more importantly, I realized I did not need to prove anything to anyone anymore. Not to Jessica, not to Troy, not to anyone except myself. My worth was not determined by my bank account, my job title, or other people's opinions. It was determined by how I treated others, how I handled adversity, and whether I stayed true to my values even when no one was watching. I also learned that success means nothing if you are miserable. During my marriage, I chased growth and profits relentlessly. I built an empire but lost my wife in the process. Was it worth it? I honestly do not know. What I do know is that I cannot change the past, but I can shape the future. I run TechVista with the same ambition, but now I do it with balance, with gratitude, with awareness that business success is meaningless without personal fulfillment. And Troy, he is still at TechVista, still working hard, still learning. I see him occasionally in meetings. He nods respectfully, keeps his head down, focuses on his work. I respect that. Growth is not about never making mistakes. It is about learning from them. He made mistakes, faced consequences, and chose to improve. That takes courage. As for Jessica, I genuinely hope she finds what she is looking for. She taught me valuable lessons about myself, about relationships, about the importance of presence. I will always be grateful for that, even if our ending was painful. Looking back now, I do not regret anything. Not the divorce, not the humiliation at the coffee shop, not even Troy's cruel words. Because all of it led me here to a version of myself I actually like. Someone who is successful but not consumed by success. Someone who is driven but not blinded by ambition. Someone who understands that kindness and humility are not weaknesses but strengths. I still run TechVista and we are doing better than ever. But now I run it differently, with purpose, with balance, with gratitude for the journey. Sometimes the people who underestimate you give you the greatest gift, the freedom to prove yourself wrong, not to them but to you. So I want to ask you something. Have you ever been underestimated by someone who did not know your whole story? How did you handle it? Drop your answer in the comments because I would love to hear your experiences. If this story resonated with you, please hit that like button. It really helps more people find these stories. And do not forget to subscribe and share this with someone who needs to hear it today. Thank you so much for listening to my story. I hope it reminded you that your value is not defined by anyone else's opinion. Stay strong, stay humble, and keep proving yourself right.